Uh, Call the Bowling Green, Warren County Planning and Zoning Commission into order tonight, September the 1st. McKenna, would you please call the roll?
Sir, Commissioner Drain? Commissioner Gay?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert?
Yes, ma'am.
And Chair Warren?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioners, you have the minutes of the August 18th meeting in your packet. Are there any questions? Hearing none, would call for a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Volkert?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Drain? Commissioner Gay?
Abstain.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale? And Chair Warren?
Yes, ma'am. Counselor, we enter into our public hearing, please, sir.
Thank you. I request that you order that the record tonight include all relevant statutory and regulatory provisions, the Commission's entire file for each application, and ask that you also make record of the qualifications of each staff witness. Finally, I request that you administer the oath to those witnesses.
You all swear to tell the truth? Thank you all very much. In your packets, you had the subdivision site development plans. Are there any questions regarding those, commissioners? Hearing none, we move to old business. I don't think we have any old business, Ben, is that correct? All right. We enter into our first public hearing. Before we get into our public hearing, we appreciate everybody being here tonight. You see upon the screen how this proceeds. Our staff will make a presentation about the proposed zoning map amendment or changes that are here. The applicants will have 15 minutes to make their presentation. The folks in the audience have time to ask questions, and then each individual public comment, and if there's somebody that, if the opposition has one spokesperson, they have 15 minutes. Otherwise, if an individual has a question or a comment, we welcome those. You will have 3 minutes, and after we hit so many redundant comments, then we will not hear those again, if that's okay with everybody. So we appreciate you all being here tonight. Our first item tonight is 2022-49Z County. M.A. Williams Properties has filed an application to rezone a tract of land containing approximately 104 acres located at 1050 Brookwood Drive from agriculture to planned unit development with the general development plan. Ms. Hurt?
Thank you, Chair Warren. We had a pre-application meeting back in April for the property you just referenced, located on Brookwood Drive. Just to get your bearings here, I-165 runs on the east side of the property as well. Current zoning, as you mentioned, is agriculture, with a current use also of agriculture. The future land use designation for the property is low-density residential. And with that, I'll jump into our site characteristics review section of the staff report, and I will take responsibility. It looks like there's a typo in that section, so I want to reference page 14, which is the concept plan that was submitted for the PUD zoning. And on page 14, you'll see the proposed development standards, including the building setbacks and the lot widths and the lot sizes. And so the application this evening proposes 2 types of single-family development, both single-family detached, which on the concept would be the dark green lines, and then what we would consider to be a single-family attached product, where there would be 2 homes attached with a common wall with a property line dividing the 2. And those are, I guess, what I'll call the mint green color. And so the applicants have spelled out minimum lot sizes for the single-family detached homes to be at least 6,820 square feet with a minimum lot width of 62 feet, with the exception of lots on the top. So the lots that back up to the properties on Brookwood Drive, These lots are proposed to be a minimum of 8,250 square feet with a minimum lot width of 75 feet. For the single-family attached homes, the minimum lot size proposed is 3,850 square feet with a minimum lot width of 35 feet. And then you can see the building setbacks outlined in that middle section there. They are proposing to utilize a 20-foot front yard setback, 7.5-foot side yard setbacks, and 20-foot rear yard setbacks. The only exception to that would be those twin home lots and the setback where those single-family attached homes share that common wall. In that case would be 0. Going back to page 2. Actually, I'll skip to page 3, and we'll look at the surrounding density. We've noted that within a quarter of a mile of the property, on the west side of I-165, densities range from 0 to 2.5 dwelling units per acre, with a median density of 0.51 dwelling units per acre and an average of 0.65 dwelling units per acre. The proposed density is 3.95 dwelling units per acre, which is just shy of 8 times the median in the area. Touching on proposed open space, the standards for the PUD allow a maximum of 50% lot coverage for each lot, so each lot would have to retain at least 50% open space. There is no additional open space planned for the development other than drainage areas. However, sidewalks are proposed on both sides of the streets. The applicants have also stated in their narrative concept plan an intent for joint recreation space. You'll see at the top of your concept plan, which I haven't mentioned yet, there is an area reserved for a future school. That is not included in the rezoning application, but they did go ahead and show that on the concept plan. And so it's their intent to have joint recreation space with the school, but there is nothing in place that would hold either party to that requirement. Looking at the proposed development plan conditions, number 1 limits the development to a maximum of 58 single-family attached homes, so those would be those twin home lots shown in the mint green color, and then a maximum of 272 single-family detached homes. Those would be the lots in the dark green color. Number 2 sets a minimum home size of 1,400 square feet, and that would be for both the single-family detached and attached homes. Number 3 requires a minimum of a 1-car garage. 4 outlines proposed materials for the homes. I won't read through all of those, but they are proposing a variety of materials, and they have required that foundations be brick or stone. 5 deals with utility placement. 6 requires uniform streetlights in the development. 7 includes a requirement for a community mailbox system. 8 outlines tree preservation and a new tree planting requirement. A minimum of 2 trees shall be planted on each lot. 9 addresses sinkholes. 10 outlines some housekeeping items for development plan conditions that would get converted to private restrictions later. 11 requires sidewalks on both sides of the street, as I had mentioned earlier. 12 requires participation in a homeowners association. 13 requires improvements to Brookwood Drive. I'll touch on those in just a minute. 14 implements a screening requirement for lots that are essentially visible from Brookwood Drive. It'd be the lots most immediate here at the entrance of the development, and there's a screening requirement that the developer incorporate a minimum of 6 evergreen trees and 3 deciduous trees per 100 linear feet in that particular area. Number 15 outlines provisions for the protection of the existing cemetery. There is an existing cemetery that's located central to the development in this area here. And then 16 looks at the demolition of the existing house that the applicants have agreed to donate salvageable materials and also offer up the structure to any local or one of our local fire departments for training. Section 3.1.4 outlines the requirements for a traffic impact study, and the Warren County Public Works Department did not require a traffic impact study. In lieu of a commitment from the applicants that the road, Brookwood Drive, be widened from US 231, which would be Morgantown Road. If we go back, I don't even think it's in any of the aerial views here, but it would be just to the top of the screen. And so they would have to widen Brookwood Drive all the way from US 231 to the development's entrance, and that would have to be a minimum of 21 feet in width. And the applicants did agree to do that in their development plan conditions. We evaluated 20 of the items from the Focus 2030 category review. We found that the application complies with 6 of those. 14 are up to the Planning Commission to consider for compliance. The first being LU 1.1.3, which looks at compatibility. So the Planning Commission should determine if the proposal is compatible, including the proposed density, lot sizes, lot widths, and setbacks. On page 6, touching on LU 2 and 2.1, which look at quality of development and character of the area. LU 2.1.1 looks at open space. LU 2.1.4, PR 1.7, and NCR 1.1.6 look at preservation of our tree canopy. Jumping down to LU 2.5.2, which looks at compatibility of infill development. Jumping down to HN1 and HN1.3, those look at character and pattern of development within the area and the impact on nearby neighborhoods. And then last, HN 2.1 and HN 4, which look at suitability of the proposed housing type and the additional opportunity for housing options in the area. With that, I will go back to page 1 and look at a few of our staff points to consider. The first is that the average lot size on the west side of I-165 is 9.6 acres, roughly. The general minimum lot size for the single-family detached lots is 6,820 square feet, which is nearly 61 times smaller the average in the area. However, this would be the first sewered subdivision in this area, west of I-165. Similarly, considering that this would be the first sewered subdivision in the area, we also looked at density, and within a quarter of a mile on the west side of I-165, I had mentioned earlier that the median density is around a half dwelling unit per acre, and that the proposed density for this development is just under 4 dwelling units per acre. Third, the standard front yard setback for residential zones in the zoning ordinance is 25 feet, and the proposed front setbacks for this development are 20 feet. Sorry, the second part of that is a typo. That should not have been in there, so just be the first part of bullet point 3. And then last, the applicants have not provided any formal usable open space within the development, but did include sidewalks on both sides of the street. That is all for the staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rachel. Commissioners, questions for Ms. Hurt's report?
So Rachel, why do I see such a disparity from one side of the National Parkway to the other? It looks like, so is sewer just coming to this side?
Sewer is not currently available on the west side. Or there are no sewer developments on the west side of I-165. If we go back to, whoops, going the wrong way. If we go back to the map here with the zoning, you can see on the east side, the different colors here. We have already on the east side, there are numerous sewered single-family lots there, and you can see those are much smaller, just in comparison to the west side of I-165.
And is there some event that's making sewer available here?
That may be a good question for the applicant. I'm not sure why it's just now a proposal in this area.
And so, in considering this proposal, should we consider the density on the other side of the interstate?
I think that's up to each of you individually, how you would view that, because it is physically separated by the interstate, but it is fair to say that there are more dense areas that are in proximity to this development, but as far as by way of roadway to physically get to this property, you may have a difference, I guess, of opinion between all of you that are sitting up here this evening. So,
Rachel, where's the proposed school going? Could you point that out?
Let me go back to the concept plan. So they're Brookwood Drive runs here, and the development entrance would come in here, and then the school is proposed on this lot in this open space area here.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Rachel, is it fair to say that through this process, they have made amendments to their application from maybe when they first started?
Yes, that is correct. Anytime we receive an application, we'll get an original submittal, and we'll do a thorough review of what was turned in, and we will offer comments and feedback based on our goals and objectives in the comprehensive plan, and different things like compatibility and things that they may be able to do to improve the development, or how they could be more sensitive as far as or context sensitive to designing the neighborhood to where it would be more compatible with existing properties in the area. So this is definitely different from the original submittal that we received, and I think you should have received that correspondence at the back of your packet, I think starting on page 31, so you can probably see maybe how it's started from point A with the original submission to multiple versions until we have arrived at the final proposal that is before you this evening.
Is it also, I've also noticed from your staff comments, clearly in the early on, there were a lot of comments. Now it seems to be pared down to just a few items. Is that a reflection of the applicant's movement in this process?
Yes. Yes, I guess they worked closely with our staff throughout the last several weeks to try and address as many of our concerns and comments that we had provided. But still, there are those few items for your consideration on page 1 that we felt were important for you to take a look at this evening.
Very good.
Commissioners, any other questions? Ms. Hurd, I have a couple. The Brookwood Drive entrance coming off Morgantown Road, and I know there wasn't a traffic study required, so we're Brookwood Drive is 21 feet all the way up to Morgantown Road. Is there a left turn lane access? Okay, there is. All right, thank you very much. And question 4, and this will be a question for the applicants. There was, on General Development Plan number 4, there wasn't any percentages on what the materials will be made of.
That's accurate, yes.
We will address that with the applicant. Commissioners, any other questions for Ms. Hurd? Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here or their representative?
Good evening. Chris Davenport for the applicant, 921 College, and I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Davenport.
Let me address the materials first. I want to make sure that the commission understands what they've obligated to. The elements that we've submitted to the conditions require all of the homes to have front facades of brick, stone, hardy, or other masonry. So
Where is that? Is this an amendment or is this in?
No, it's as
The
filed.
first sentence says.
Okay,
Yeah.
excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's actually, of those discussions that we had with staff, that is one of the changes the applicant made. I think originally there was no requirement that any of the homes have any facade materials of anything. So, and frankly, given recent subdivisions I've seen before the board, I know that's something the board is looking for. So I want to make that point. Secondly, I think Rachel mentioned this as well, but another change that the applicant made is that the lots that are along basically the top of your concept, the narrative concept requires those lots to be a minimum of 8,250 square feet. To give some context for the board, that is a lot size somewhere between RS1C and RS1B standards. RS1C being a minimum of 8,000 square feet. The rest of the detached lots have a minimum square footage of 6,820 square feet, which would be higher than D, closer to RS1C. So another change that was made through this, I think originally when I started working with the applicant on this project, this was envisioned to be an RS1D development, with all those lots being at least 5,000 square feet. The lot count would have been much higher, you can imagine. So given the fact that this is what I would call one of these new sewer developments, and that's what the staff has told you in their staff report, the first sewer development west of, I still call it the Natcher, but 165, I guess. That was something the staff was sensitive to. And so that's some of the changes. Probably the most principal changes the applicant made was to increase their lot size, decrease their number count. Obviously, that affects the density count. That brings down the density count. This request, I think, is 3.9 or 95 units an acre, which is below the low density high of 4.5. That's why we're here tonight, not on a flume night, because this application is consistent with the property's flume. So they made those changes to the lot sizes. The larger lot sizes to the top of the concept was given just to make those lot sizes bigger next to those properties adjoining Brookwood. It was a thought process there. Some other aspects, obviously I think Rachel didn't mention this, but the staff does point out in their report, in the neighborhood, I think roughly 40% of all the homes are just completely vinyl and 70% have block foundations. We've committed to those front facades being masonry. We've committed to no block foundations. We're committed to brick or stone foundations, and we've committed to the double sidewalks. Although there are no, as staff point out, maybe the concept doesn't show a park necessarily, I would point out that the retention areas will be rather significant, and typically those are maintained in a way by the HOA that's envisioned in the restrictions to aid the neighborhood. Secondly, we do have this concept is showing the school. So I want to give some backstory on that. When staff first mentioned as part of this process some additional office space or open space, it is the intention of the developer working with the school to work hand in hand, much like you see on Carter's Crossing on Cumberland Trace. If you go by that subdivision that was rezoned, the school was built in the last 5 or 6 years. To the point that the school board, even on this concept, they've agreed to flip the orientation of the school. So originally, I'm told their intention was basically the parking and the car rider line areas you see depicted to the top of this concept would have existed between the school and the neighborhood. That makes it more difficult for the school to share some of that open space, playground areas, those sorts of things. So I just want to point that out. Rachel's right, is that I don't represent the school. And here tonight, I can't obligate the school to do anything. I think you all understand that. But the property that's depicted as a school is part of the property these developers are purchasing. All right? So this application has a contract vendee and a property owner. We have excluded that from this zoning and from this development because of the discussions they've had with the school. And the only point I want to make is those are not preliminary in nature, to the point that the school has even flipped that concept. Okay, so I wish I could, I wish the school board was here and their plans were further down the road, but that's not the case. But I guess I would submit to you, this developer rezoning this tract the way they're doing it and leaving that tract out should say something about what they feel about the school board's intentions.
Chris, there's no contract or LOI yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I think those are really the high points I wanted to point out to you. The question about discussion, I think, is a really good one, and I think it, is a testament to my client working with the staff and the staff working with my client in trying to trying to iron out these concerns as best as my client can. And that's what we've tried to do before we got here tonight. So with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions y'all may have.
Thank you, Mr. Davenport. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Davenport and his comments?
So, Chris, first, I want to commend you. This is closer to what we're looking for. We would prefer that these discussions happen prior to arrival, and there's less negotiation once we arrive here. Let's go back to the school for a moment. What is bringing sewer to this section? Is it the school?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because when that discussion was happening, I talked to Brian Shirley, who's the engineer on this project with Arnold Consulting, and he tells me, and my understanding is the sewer currently is ran to the fire station, which I believe is on Morgantown Road just before Brookwood. And because that's within 2,000 feet of this property, we would have to extend the sewer here anyways. That's what Brian's telling me, and I'm sure if y'all want to hear that from Brian, I'm happy to bring him up here. But y'all are familiar with that. Just because your property doesn't have sewer, if you're going to develop it, if it's close enough, you have to bring it. And so
this is close enough to existing sewer without the school? Do I understand that correctly? I'm seeing Rachel. Okay.
and you may want to ask Brian, I hate to volunteer Brian, but
That's
that was
okay.
the source of, that's where I turned to ask that question.
That's okay. And so, one last question regarding the school. So, this property that depicts a school on this concept plan is currently owned by your applicant, is that correct?
It's part of it, they have this under contract.
They have it under contract?
Correct.
Okay. And if this were to move forward, your client intends to purchase that property, is that correct?
Correct.
And in turn, they intend to sell a portion of that property to the school if the school continues to be inclined to purchase that property based on this concept plan. Is that correct?
It's the plan and that's the hope. And I guess, again, I'll reiterate, they're leaving that acreage out. You know, the staff report mentions that the entire parcel is 104 acres. We're only rezoning 83 of those.
Okay. So clearly, the school has expressed an interest in locating a school at this location, correct?
And that concept, you see the footprint of the building, that's where Brian Shirley got the footprint and the plans.
Good. And so, I don't want to cut you short here, but we may ask Brian about the sewer here in just a
I
moment.
think I
if
see
that's okay.
calculators out, so I think the staff is, they're trying to measure my math. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davenport. Commissioners, before we hear from the audience, I guess there's no other comments. For those in the audience tonight, you have heard this presentation. There's many people here. Do you all have a spokesperson regarding this application change? You have a spokesperson? Yes, ma'am. Okay, come on up. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for being here.
By default.
All right. Would you state your name and address, please?
I'm Carrie Lee Higginbotham. I live at 1041 Brookwood Drive. Higginbotham.
Ms. Higginbotham, you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much.
Okay, here's petition that is signed. I don't know who gets this. You. Here are some exhibits that I've made for you all to go along with what I'm going to speak about tonight. I'd like to have the exhibits of what I'm going to speak about tonight.
Thank you.
I brought each of them have one, I think. Oh, the petition, Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the commission, the parties of the application, friends, and neighbors. First of all, I want to say I had COVID about 4 weeks ago. One of my after effects is that I get these horrible coughing spells. If that happens, because it's about that time of day, somebody back here is going to read this. Okay, my husband and I live directly across the street. Our driveway will be directly across the street from where the entrance of this subdivision is. First of all, let me state that I'm totally opposed to any rezoning, but I do have sense enough to know that 104 acres this close to Bowling Green and as fast as we are growing is not going to stay agriculture forever. I hope that each of you have taken the time to go out and look at this farm and to look at Brookwood Drive. I understand that there's a proposal of a school, and also it's my understanding from the Board of Education Chief Financial Officer that there's really nothing we can do about it when they want to put a school in, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But I do want to bring before you the many problems that we, the citizens of Brookwood and Regalwood and Crows Lane, the problems that are shown in this concept plan. My husband and I bought our property almost 16 years ago. Due to his health issues, he cannot stay in a straight chair very long, so he stayed at home tonight. As you can imagine, out in the country, we love seeing the deer, and we love seeing the turkeys. We even like hearing the coyotes howl at night. I know the farmers don't like them, but I've enjoyed hearing them. And we're dreading the days that we'll only hear vehicles and seeing houses. When the ramps on 165 were reworked, there was small trees and scrub brush that they took out to make the extension of the ramp longer. That alone, and we live a fourth of a mile from where that ramp goes on, that alone has increased the noise at our house about 50%, the traffic. And then this farm also had land on the other side of 165. That'll be one of your new subdivisions. They have taken all the trees down, of course, up to the fence. And now we can hear the traffic on 165 a lot. And I dread if this is developed and all the trees along 165 are gone. On page 4, let me have, who has mine? No, not that one, this one, I'm sorry. I meant to get this before. On page 4, number 8, states that all the existing trees located on the perimeter of the development, which have a caliper of 8 inches or more, and are which located within 10 feet of the property line, will be maintained during development and construction. If you look at that first picture on your first exhibit, why am I ringing? Am I too loud? If you look at that picture on Exhibit A at the bottom, I've circled 2 large trees. Those trees are probably 50 to 70 years old. They're tall, they're big. Those trees meet the caliper, but they don't meet the 10 feet. Those trees are going to be gone. And the proposal is to put 2 trees on each lot, and of course the linear on the Brookwood, they're going to put 9 trees, and that's only 1 tree every 11 feet. And that is not going to replace what they will take down. On page 5, the paragraph right before Focus 2030 category review says that there was not a traffic impact study done. Now, if you look on your exhibit B and C, I've done my own traffic study. I went and did it Friday, last week, and yesterday morning. Yesterday morning is much truer to the number of vehicles that travel down Morgantown Road. The one I did on Friday, I only did out Brookwood to the right from Morgantown Road into town that didn't get on 165. But yesterday, I added the vehicle number that came off of 165 at Morgantown Road and turned left. So you can see there's a great amount of traffic on Morgantown Road. There's also the bus garages on Morgantown Road. And there's approximately 25 buses that leave each morning between 5:45 and 6:30. And on Morgantown Road, it's only 4 lanes from about Brookwood Drive to where Willoughby Road and Reflection Lane junction at And it's like being at a race car, in a drag race. You stay in the left lane and hope you can save your space because it goes down to one lane, or there are a lot of daredevils that come, and of course they pass everybody. So I can see, with the added traffic, I can see a lot of fender benders. They've proposed 330, but for the simple arithmetic, I'm going to just use the number of 300 units. Let's say they just put 300 units in. Nowadays, almost every household has at least one licensed driver that has a car. And most of them have 2 licensed drivers that have cars. So let's assume that 250 of these have 2 drivers and the 50 remaining have 1 driver. That's a total of 550 drivers. Now let's just say half of them go to work. But I think it'll be a lot more nowadays. Everybody has to work. That's 275 cars leaving Brookwood between, and I'm going off of the majority of my numbers on my count, between 6:30 and 8. The chief financial officer at the Board of Education told me that when they put a school in, they try to reserve 200 spaces for vehicles for drop-off and pickup. Now, if just a fourth of those, of course, we don't know how big this school's going to be. He said it depended on the development that here and on out Morgantown Road. But let's say a fourth of those. Okay, you're going to have 50 more cars that have a half an hour to drop kids off of a morning. Of an afternoon, they're going to be backed up, back end to end. So there's going to be 50 coming out pretty close. As soon as they can load your child in the car, you're gone. So again, there's going to be a backup to get to Morgantown Road. On Regalwood, Crows Lane, and Brookwood, there's approximately 60 to 65 homes. Don't know how many of those people work, but a lot of people do. Because on my count, I saw everybody that went to work from 5:30 to 8:30. Now then, I want to have you to look at your exhibits. It's maps. There's 3 maps there. One will show you Magnolia Hills, which is the subdivision on Plano Road. They have one way out right now, but when they come to Plano Road, they can turn left and go to Scottsville. They can turn right and get on 165, or they can go on out Plano Road. The other one I want you to look at is the one that's on 3 Springs Road. It backs up to 65 and 165. They can come out of their subdivision, turn right, go to Scottsville Road, turn left, turn right, and then left onto Small House, or they can go left out 3 Springs and hit Elrod or on out in that area. Then there's there's 2 more, and they're on Elrod, one on the east side of 165, one on the west side of 165. They can come out of their subdivision, turn right, go to Small House Road or 3 Springs, or turn left, go on Elrod to Nashville Road or wherever that way. On page 15, number 7, it says that this planned unit development will tie in with the surrounding areas. I've given you some pictures of the homes on Brookwood Drive. And I different with that. The total assessment of the homes on Brookwood Drive average $98,500. Now, I was privy to a recent appraisal of a home on Brookwood Drive. The appraisal was 25% more. So if you add 25% to 98.5, that only brings us up to like $23,000. So our homes on Brookwood Drive, if they were all appraised 20% above or 25% above their assessment, they will only be average being worth $123,000. I looked on Realtor.com and searched for new homes from the square footage of 1,300 feet to 1,400 feet. I found 8. I averaged those out. The average was 1,366 square feet. I think they proposed to build 1,400 square feet homes. The average listing price of those 8 homes was $253,638.50. So how can, let's use the appraisal, How can a $253,000 homes fit in well with a $123,000 home? And they're not worth, the assessments are more right, I will tell you. You all just need to really look at the pictures and see. There's, yes, we have block foundation. There are some nice houses out there. There's some single, there's some double wides or modular homes. There's some single trailers out through there. But everyone knows that Morgantown Road and probably Louisville Road are the two of the most humble areas in the town. It's not real rich. I mean, that's just a fact of life. Then I want you to look on page 27 and the goal of LU2. It states to have development which protects community character. I feel and think that this proposed development does not protect the character of our home, or do not protect the character of our community. Where people, everybody I've talked to, work hard, we're all trying to, and we're barely getting by. A lot of us are still paying on our homes, and we're living in homes that are assessed at $98,000. And you're gonna say when they put this in, and I know especially if the school goes in, that the value of our homes will go up. But you know what? If you are still paying on your home and you have to go out and buy a house for $253,000 and still paying on your home, it's not gonna balance out. We won't be able to better ourselves, even with the value of our homes. The ones that will be the best off are the ones that have got their mortgages paid off. But again, these are working people, hardworking people that live out there. Now then, I want you to turn to page 10, the aerial view, and I want you to look at the visitation around, especially the northern end up there. That's the picture I've shown you on the front. All that will be gone, all of it. And we'll have 9 trees every 11 feet. So my proposal, and this is just mine, I haven't talked to anybody else about, this is what Carrie Lee would like to have, and I know you're all not here to serve just me. I understand that. But if this goes in, I would propose that all the existing vegetation on that farm stays, especially over on 165. You cannot build the natural sound barrier that trees and evergreens, you can't build anything that'll take the place of that. I would like for them to clean out the underbrush on the farm and build around those trees. And if they must subdivide, I would request a much smaller subdivision because of the traffic impact that it's going to have on Morgantown Road. And leave, as I say, leave all the trees that you possibly can. And before you vote, if any of you have not gone out there, I really wish, I hope you all have. I'm not going to ask you, but I really hope that you all thought about this and have gone and looked at this. And also, look at
Ms.
those
Higginbotham, you got one more minute.
Okay, I'm about done. Look at those 4 points on the first page. Keep those in mind, those points to consider. And remember, anything can look good on paper, but in reality, it usually shows an entirely different story. Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Have any questions?
Well, no, ma'am. It was a
Okay.
very well done presentation, and thank you for your time. The opposition has talked about the traffic coming in and out of Morgantown Road and Brookwood, the noise, the density of the proposed project, the price point of the existing homes. The applicant has talked about the existing vegetation and the underlying brush. We really can't do much about the wildlife. Yes, ma'am. I understand. I mean, I'm reiterating your points. Thank you very much. And Mr. Gay talked about the wildlife. Is there anyone else that in the audience tonight, we've talked about the wildlife, the brush, the existing vegetation, the price points, we've talked about the school, the density, the noise, and traffic. Anyone else in the audience tonight that would like to make a comment or something that's different than what we've said? Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, sir. Your name and address, please, sir.
My name is William Fain, 107 Brookwood, Bowling Green, Kentucky. Rigglewood, excuse me, Rigglewood. I got Brookwood on the brain
Are you
here.
sure you're not on Morgantown Road?
Yeah. You got
All
to
right.
turn left in front of oncoming traffic,
You
though.
swear to tell the truth, sir?
I do
Thank
swear to
you.
tell the whole truth. The only concern that has not been addressed and would not hesitate to leave without is the water system that's out there currently. Crow's Lane, as well as the Brookwood into the end of Brookwood, has an inadequate water supply to even operate the fire hydrants that are out there. Crow's Lane has a 3-inch water main, which will only support one additional housing structure, even though there's several lots for sale. So my main concern is water and water pressure, and in return of that, the sewer and how it would excavate that from that particular site, whether it be under the interstate or down Brookwood Lane. And then, of course, I think to Ms. Higginbotham's very detailed description of the traffic, there would have to be an additional, a functional traffic stoplight at the exit of I-165 north onto Morgantown Road, which there used to be, but when they remodeled, they took it out. So those are my two main concerns, that water pressure be addressed, as well as traffic patterns, which was already addressed by the expansion of the road to 21 feet. I don't know how you get to 21 feet unless you buy into the bus garage, but would love to understand that, and the safety and the concern of the individuals driving in and out of those roads.
Thank you, sir, for your
Yes, sir.
comments. Appreciate you being here tonight. Rachel, do we have an answer to the water pressure question?
So if this were to move forward, the developer would have to either run a new water line or upgrade existing. They would have to take care of their own development to make sure that they are providing adequate fire flow and pressure to serve their development to meet the minimum fire protection requirements.
So just to be clear, they would not be able to move forward if they didn't address those, correct? Okay.
Yes, thank you all for your comments. Is there anyone else that has a comment other than what has been expressed by the folks in the audience tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Alice Howard, 775 Sweeney Lane, and I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you, Ms. Howard.
Yes, Sweeney Lane is on the other side, but our farm would butt up right up against this property. I'm also speaking for my mother, Peggy Brownfield, who is housebound and cannot be here tonight. And she's actually the property owner, and our farm butts up against hers, and we caretake for her land. So if you noticed at the bottom end of their development, and there's 3 in this drawing here, they've got 3 roads, and they've got yellow arrows going into my mother's property. Like it looks like they think that they might develop into her land, but she wanted me to iterate to them that they will never ever buy her property. She has no intention, it's never for sale. And when she leaves this earth, it goes to my husband and I, who he's here tonight. And then when we leave, it goes to my daughter, and she couldn't be here tonight, but she also wants it to make very well known that she will never sell as well. So, you know, they might as well not have those roads there because they're not getting that land. But I have a very big question for them. That is farmland, and right now it's in conservatorship. And we have a problem right now with people trespassing. And we're part of that where it's all growed up right now, because it used to be, there's high tensile fence. And it used to be that we had a cattle farm, and when my father had a stroke, the cattle had to leave. And so right now, it is growed up, and that could be why they may think that they may get that land, but they're they're not. So at any point, cattle could go back on that farm. And those fences could be electrified again. But that's another problem that I want to be assured of, that should somebody put cattle back on that farm and those fences become electrified, I don't want somebody getting hurt. I also don't want any child or adult thinking that they can just cross said fence and go, oh, this looks grown up. Let's go exploring. Well, there's sinkholes on that property. It's also grown up. I don't want a child or an adult or someone hurt. I don't want them getting in a sinkhole. I don't want them up to no good. I don't want them coming over and trying to go hunting or shooting across, as we have had problem before. And with that many houses, that could be a big problem. Also, there's broom sage and lots of undergrowth, as I stated over there. We've had it from old tram before. That's easy to catch fire. And as you have may known from off on Morgantown Road, it takes a car backfiring. It takes somebody left trash out. Somebody's got a barrel fire going. We've had somebody burning trash in a barrel, and that ignited. And the fire department like to not got that stopped. And on Old Morgantown Road, when people did that, they let it go. Well, my house sits over the hill, and that would encircle it, and I would have no way to get out. That's just an accident waiting to happen. So unless they put, and if you notice, there are 3 tracks, that whole big long length. So unless they put some kind of solid wall there, you know, we're really not going to be happy, because they could entangle with a bull, they could entangle with wild animals, they could get hurt in some way, or their trash, at the very least, is going to blow over. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could happen. So what kind of assurance are we going to get? And it's not in visible sight of my house either. And, you know, there's big machinery and stuff if the hay's cut.
And you got about 30 more seconds.
Yeah, so I've just got a lot of questions as to how we can protect each other.
Well, thank you very much. I think that Ms. Hurt could answer the question of why the stub streets are on this rendering. Some of the questions you've asked, there's probably not an answer for. There will not be a wall built along that property line, but Ms. Hurt, would you address why those yellow stub streets?
Yeah, I can answer the 3 points that you mentioned with the 3 yellow arrows. Our subdivision regulations require that those be installed for future connectivity, but only if that owner that those connect to would agree to that. So that, I mean, it may never happen, and that's perfectly okay.
So, but there would be no barrier from any of those properties, though, to the farmland?
Unless you have a fence up along that line.
We do, but it is a high tensile fence,
Sure.
but it could be electrified, you know.
Well, that would be your decision to electrify it, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but then, you know, that's easily for somebody to go through.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
So.
Thank you very much. So we've talked about the water pressure, the wildlife. We're going through this, and then the last person talked about the trespassing across the property. Are there any other issues that we have not addressed? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
Jeff Brown, 203 Regalwood Lane, and I also represent Chairman of the Board of Barren River Volunteer Fire Department.
I'm sorry, you represent who?
The Barren River Volunteer
Oh,
Fire Department.
thank
The
you.
one that's servicing this area.
All right, thank you very much.
I think, like I said, I met with the community the day that set the meeting up, and I think really all of this is going to be just a compromise between the community and the developers, because it's something like this, you know, I do believe is needed. We need more homes. I have family and friends that are looking for homes and can't find any, but I still, being a community member of this area, I still think there's some pretty good chances or opportunities for compromise. And one of them being that what I really want to bring up that everybody has already alluded to, one extra thing on the traffic on Brookwood, since the county bus garages have changed their policies, they release kids on Brookwood Drive now. So that's something to take in consideration for drop-offs and the extra traffic. And then also on your traffic study, just being with the fire department, mornings are pretty tough getting out because traffic's coming over Morgantown Road, coming into work, people coming into Bowling Green or hitting the interstate there. So you could have a backup with the school, the buses leaving, and then all the extra traffic that you're going to be getting from that. So that's something to consider as far as your traffic study. Again, that's them turning right or getting out back into Morgantown Road from Brookwood. There was a comment about septic at the fire station. I think the address or the location was incorrect. The fire station's actually on Brookwood Drive. It's right before where the entrance to this is at. We do not have septic, or we do not have sewer, I'm sorry. We have septic tank there. So I can't tell you, there's a city building right next door to us. I don't know if they're on sewage or not, but I was thinking that there was no sewage that's coming past the interstate. But I do know for a fact the fire department does not have sewage at that location, which is 529 Brookwood Drive. That's where that's at. The thing that I really want to bring up that's really more, I guess, just as something for the developers and for the county to really look at, or the commission, is the flooding. On the actual, I don't have a topo map and there's nothing on here, but if you take the south side of that drawing and go all the way around to Crow's Lane, that's about a 600-foot elevation there. So there's nowhere for the water to go but down back towards the interstate. And Regalwood Lane and all the people on that side have a creek bed, Deers Creek, that's there. It floods every time. We've had a couple extra houses, like 2 houses added. That's gotten worse in the years as that's come along. All that water is going to have to go down that way. It was a couple months ago when we had that 7-inch rain. It seems like we're having more 30-year rains like every 3 months. The fire station flooded 2 inches. It backfilled back through into the septic because it came closer up to the station than it ever has been before. That runoff for that whole area, and I think there's a wetland or there's a spring or something in the center of that. I just want to make sure that that's in heavy consideration. What are you going to do with all that? I mean, 100 acres of saturation soil is gone. What are you going to do with that sewage, or not the runoff?
Water runoff, yes, sir.
So, because where that exit, it goes down the interstate, and it goes underneath like a spillway or a culvert that goes over into the other side. So I don't know where you're going to go. And again, if you pull your topo maps or you get with the stormwater management, they'll be able to tell you that there's going to be some things you're going to have to look
Yes, sir.
into.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Volker.
I was just going to say, when it comes to water runoff, flooding, they will be responsible for all their water. And so their engineers.
They have to contain all their.
They'll have to contain all their water, so.
Yeah, I
so
just wanna
that-
make
yeah,
sure
I
it's
understand.
known
I know, it's a great point, but they will have to contain all their water.
Okay. Like I said, I just want to make sure that's in major consideration. And then as far as environmental, I thought there was some oil wells at one time back there, so I don't know if that's been as far as environmental study or anything like that.
If there are oil wells, they will have to remediate those.
Okay.
Am I correct, Ms. Hurd?
So I don't know, I don't have the plotter as far as, I thought there was some back off of Brookwood on that side. I just don't know which land it's actually on.
Well, I think we have someone here from Arnold Engineering that could probably answer that
Okay.
question in just a minute, but appreciate your comments. And
If I may, just to make sure I specifically understand where the flooding, are you talking about where, when you turn in, like you're gonna go to the trailer park?
No,
When you say all the way around,
if you come down Brookwood Drive, and we
Okay.
call it the S-curves. So as you come through that curve and you pass by the fire station, or if you've passed by the fire station, right
I'm with
there-
you. I was just wondering how we got all the way over there. Okay. I
Yeah, that's
follow.
where the water goes. The water goes across, it's not really a trailer park, but it's mobile homes or modular homes that are across that
Yeah,
way.
there's
but
like
that's where-
I think there's a liquor store, used to be a liquor store or something there, just as you turn in.
Too far in town on that one.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
got it.
Yeah, so the Brookwood I'm talking about is where it goes underneath they actually reworked that when they did that whole interstate project. And we did notice there were some backups because they didn't have it all finished, but
See, all
but they
right.
finished it, and since they finished it, we've had some backups with, again, 7 inches of rain in like 4 hours is a lot. And I think Western even confirmed that, and I don't have the date with me, but it does back up quite a bit. And that's why I want to make sure the developers take that in consideration.
Thank you very much for
Thank
your,
you.
for your well-positioned questions. Before we call Arnold Engineering up here to address your questions, are there any other questions from the audience of anything that we have not talked about tonight? Is it something different? Well, come on up to the microphone real quick. Yes, sir. If you'd state your name and address, please.
Robert Jones, 813 Brookwood Drive.
Yes, sir, Mr. Jones.
I
You
live
swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I live straight across from the bus barn and all that stuff. And the road is fairly narrow there, and they're talking about expanding that and adding sidewalks. There are very large trees on my property, 2 large trees. I can't put my arms around them. Then my neighbor's got a large tree you can't put your arm around. It's even closer to that road. So all those trees are gonna go away. And I don't, my house sits very towards the front of the property, got a half an acre property, but my house sits very close to that road. So it's just gonna keep encroaching to the front of my house. I mean, it's gonna, I don't know if there's a limit to how close they can get that road to my house or not, but I just, the noise and that's gonna drive me crazy.
Thank you for your question. Ms. Hurt, do you have an answer for that?
I can't say specifically without seeing road plans or how the right-of-way runs in front of his home, but there is an established right-of-way, and the road, if it were widened, would have to stay within the public right-of-way. It wouldn't be encroaching on someone's private property.
Private property.
So
Okay.
there's not a circumstance where they would encroach on this gentleman's private property in order to widen the road, is that correct?
Unless it's in
Right,
the
not
right-
unless they acquired easements through that owner. It would be fair to say if the road is widened, it would be closer to his home because the pavement would be wider than it
Okay.
currently exists.
All right. All right, thank you, sir. Just to answer the question about the water runoff and potentially oil wells,
Brian Shirley, 1136 South Park Drive.
thank you, Brian, swear to tell the truth.
Yes, sir, I do.
Could you address the two questions regarding the water runoff and potentially if there is, as the one person mentioned, potentially an oil well?
Looking at the environmental assessment study, I don't recall seeing a well. If there is one, though, there are state standards that you have to go through to plug those.
Pull the microphone over so everybody
At a
can hear you.
certain depth. And if those are, we don't want to, I would say, have a house or a structure anywhere near one of those. So that would have to be remediated. Stormwater, we cannot increase the amount of runoff that's coming from the site, as you were saying before, after development any more than what's going off now. There was the question about sewer. I was not 100% sure if the fire department or the cause building was on sewer. Sewer has been expanded underneath the 165, I still call it the Natural Parkway. And it is right at the bottom of the ramp, the new ramp that was constructed, about an 18-inch sewer line that has been designed to take this area as it develops. Now, obviously, we'll probably have to pump to that. And the water line, the school is going to require a minimum 8-inch water line. So even though 6 inches is kind of the standard to be able to get the fire flows, if a school goes out there, it's going to have to be an 8-inch.
Thank you, Brian.
So the developer would install that new water line you're referring to, correct? Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Thank you, Brian. All right. To give everybody respect, have you heard all the questions? Is there any other comments that have not been expressed? And we appreciate everybody being here tonight for this. Yes, sir. Is there something different? I think we've talked about the traffic, and that's going to have to be resolved. Yes, sir. Do you have something different? Name and address, please, sir.
Donald Cowles, 1099 Brookwood Drive.
Yes, sir, Mr. Cowles.
I'm across the street from the property.
Okay.
Has there been an elevation study as to where those areas would be subject to flooding?
I think that question was answered by Mr. Shirley, that in the development plan, that as we see it on the screen here tonight, okay, they will do their engineering work, whatever the elevations are, but they cannot, within this development plan, put water off on anybody else. They have to contain their own water. So if there is an elevation that's higher or lower, they have to engineer that so that there's no water put off on anybody else. Does that make sense?
Partially. Runoff from other property onto theirs.
They cannot control that, but they would have an incentive to design this, that if someone else's water is coming onto this property, that they would not want to have that coming onto their property, so they would design that in that manner. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Cowles. All right. Thank you all for being here tonight. Are there any other questions?
I have one other.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Is it something different? Okay.
Sarah Freeman, 1464 Brookwood Drive.
Yes, ma'am.
And behind my property on, farther down from this part, there is an oil well. I don't know if it's active or not, but it is there.
Okay, so, thank you very much. And as Mr. Shirley said, if this, wherever that oil well is, if it's on their property, the proposed development, they have to take care of that. Am I correct, Mr. Shirley? But if there's one down the road somewhere, we don't know about that, and that's not part of this proposal tonight. Thank you very much. All right, thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate all your comments. Commissioners, any other questions of anyone or the applicants? Mr. Davenport, do you have any other comments, briefly?
The only thing I'll add, because Mr. Shirley addressed, I think, everything. The gentleman from the fire department mentioned the school. Some of you may have been involved in other school rezonings. When the school comes back to get that zoned, my understanding is the State Board of Education, and maybe Rachel and Ben can speak to this, require an extremely broad traffic view. So his concerns were the school adding traffic to Morgantown Road, whether it needs to be a signal there. I would just remind you all that at that stage is when they'll look at the impact of the school. Thank you all.
Thank you. Commissioners, appreciate everybody's comments tonight. Are there any other questions? If hearing none, would call for a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with a condition upon a general development plan docket number 2022-49Z County. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by the compliance with the objective and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further request this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale. Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Drain.
Yes, ma'am.
And Chair Warren.
Yes, ma'am. The motion is approved and will go to the Warren County Fiscal Court for final approval. Our next item tonight is 2022-63Z County. Joey Saenz. Our next item tonight, if y'all could hold the comments down, please. Our next item tonight is 2022-63Z County. Joey Saenz and Anthony Shryock have filed an application to rezone a tract of land containing approximately 5 acres located at 449 Cleveland Avenue from agriculture to RE residential estate with a general development plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting on August the 4th for the property that you mentioned, and it is highlighted in yellow. The current zoning is agriculture. The current land use is single-family residential, and the future land use is low-density residential. And the applicants are proposing to rezone in order to divide the property into 2 single-family residential tracts. And they have provided a few site plans for you to look at as well. Looking over on page 2 at the site characteristics review, specifically transportation infrastructure, the property has frontage on Cleveland Drive, which is a county-maintained rural local roadway with 14 feet of pavement width. So this application complies with the majority of the items in the site characteristics review, with considerations noted regarding the road characteristics that I just mentioned. Looking down at the site design and compatibility review, surrounding density, the area contains many large agricultural tracts. There are also several low-density single-family residential tracts located in the area. The average density for the properties located on Cleveland Drive is 0.28 dwelling units per acre, and the proposed density for this development is 0.40 dwelling units per acre. Looking at the building material review, homes in the surrounding area are comprised of a mixture of brick, vinyl, stone, metal, and other modern materials. The applicants have agreed to prohibit visible plain face block in DPC number 7. Looking at the building orientation, the current home that is under construction is oriented toward Cleveland Drive. The applicants have agreed in DPC number 2 that any new residents also face Cleveland Drive as well. Looking at the development plan conditions, the applicants have submitted the following development plan conditions. Number 1, a maximum of 2 building lots. Number 2 addresses the building orientation. Number 3, any new primary residential structure constructed on the property shall contain a minimum of 1,650 square feet of heated space, and each home shall have a 2-car attached garage. Number 4, the existing entrance is proposed to remain and will continue to serve the property. In the event any changes are proposed regarding access to the property, they will consult the Warren County Public Works Department. Number 5 addresses septic system use and approval. Number 6, existing vegetation shall be preserved at the greatest extent. Number 7 prohibits the plain face block foundations. Number 8 addresses sinkholes. Number 9 addresses the setback of at least 100 feet. Number 10 prohibits manufactured homes. The proposed general development plan meets the majority of the review criteria for site design and compatibility and meets the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance. Looking down at the Focus 2030 category review, staff reviewed 17 items, and I'll just highlight a few for you. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposal is compatible with the surrounding area and if it complies with LU 1.1.3. The proposal may comply with LU 2. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposal is high-quality development and if it will protect the character of the area. The proposal may comply with LU 2.5.2, HN1, and HN 1.3. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposed development is a compatible infill project that preserves or enhances the character of the area. And the proposal may comply with HN 2.1 and HN 4. The Planning Commission should determine if the location of the planned development is suitable for the proposed housing type, and if the proposed residence is believed to enhance the array of housing options. Looking back on page 1 for the points to consider, The application complies with the majority of the criteria evaluated by staff during the review process. And the Planning Commission has approved 3 rezoning applications in 2018, 2019, and 2020 for other properties along Cleveland Drive. The DPCs supplied by the applicants are similar to those approved in previous years. So that is all we have for a staff report. Would I be happy to answer any questions?
Very much. Commissioners, any questions regarding this proposal?
So it looks like the applicant has prohibited visible plain face block, but seems to possibly leave open the possibility of split face block. Is that a compatible foundation for this area?
I think that
Yeah, I remember when we looked at the properties in preparation of even the pre-app, there are a myriad of different materials, foundation styles and types, and the DPCs or the binding elements for the previous rezonings are similar to what are before you this evening.
Got it, okay. And to your knowledge, is the applicant opposed to a brick veneer or masonry veneer foundation, or are they purposely leaving it open for split face block?
That may be a question for them. I know that there's currently a home under construction, and I believe they may be utilizing split face block on that particular home, so they may need to get up here in just a second and address that.
It appears that there's a structure on one of these lots, is that correct?
Yes, that's under construction currently.
So what we see there is under construction currently?
Yes.
I see. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you very much. Is the applicant here or their representative would like to address? Yes, sir, if you would come to the microphone, please. Yes, sir, your name and address?
My name's Joey Saenz, address 448 Cleveland Drive. I'm co-owners with Anthony Shryock.
Swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
Oh, you're fine. The home that's under construction is currently my home that I'm building right now, and it is a brick foundation. So there is no split face block on my side. So it is, I got decorative brick on the outside all the way around.
And so with that being the case, since you're living there, do you have any opposition to making this, to changing this foundation wording slightly to make the other lot have at least a brick veneer foundation as well?
I'm okay with that, but I want to talk to my partner here.
Come on up, you gotta come to the microphone. We can't hear you in the back. And yes, sir, if you state your name and address, please, sir.
We got to get it. Tony Shryock, and I guess 448 Cleveland.
All right, thank you. You swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
And you heard Mr. Graham's request. Do you agree to that the foundation would be?
Absolutely no problem with that.
All right, thank you
Yes.
very much.
Yes, sir.
Wait a minute, before you all sit down, Mr. Moore.
We're going to require a masonry veneer foundation.
Masonry, yeah.
Yeah, all right. And so, Ms. Shryock, this is for the minutes, do you agree to that? Okay, thank you very much. All right. That's it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or opposition to this request? Yes, sir, if you come to the microphone, please. Yes, sir. Your name and address, please, sir.
Joey Upchurch, 481 Cleveland Drive.
Mr. Upchurch, you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I do. So this is the Mary Bandy subdivision, and it has restrictions. I don't know if you guys are aware of the subdivision code in 1976. I did not bring a copy because it's not my job to bring it. The actual neighborhood has a limit on how many homes can be built, and it's already 2 over the limit. So I don't know if you were aware of that. My other neighbors didn't get any postcards, and I just now got a hold of them on the way here. So, unfortunately, I don't know if you guys can just rezone stuff on your own without following the bylaws of the Mary Bandy subdivision. Can anybody answer that question?
My best.
Okay. Because
Refer-
I couldn't rezone my property 3 years ago to split it up.
You're referring to subdivision restrictions,
Right. There's a whole list of subdivision restrictions,
and the planning commission,
and it has not been amended.
and the planning commission does not enforce subdivision restrictions.
Okay.
They are private restrictions and can only be enforced by the residents of that subdivision in a legal action that would be brought against a property owner who was in violation of those subdivision regulations. So we don't keep the planning commission does not keep a record of those subdivision restrictions. So you're correct that we do not enforce those restrictions. If they were platted in 1976, I'd immediately look to see when they expired.
They don't expire till 2040.
So that's a provision that's you've seen them. I haven't. But if you want to enforce those restrictions against this property or any other in that subdivision, then you'll need to maintain a private action.
Okay. I do have another question about the cemetery that is on this. There's a cemetery with 6 plots right in between where they're splitting it up. They've been covered over the last 10 years. So are the graves going to be split evenly on that subdivision, on those lots, or how is that going to work? And they may not be aware that there's a cemetery there.
The engineer has, and the surveyor has not, that I can see, identified a cemetery on these 2 lots.
Yeah, our records, not to say that there's not one there, we just don't have record that there is a cemetery. If there is,
They're older, they're covered up. So but it goes, Will Pooley that owned the lot before the last gentleman, which was his nephew, had told me that he looked at it, there's like 4 to 6 plots, and it goes right, there's like 3 on each side, basically. They're splitting it right down the middle, so I don't know if anybody was aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, we would have, if we know of a cemetery that exists, we would have a record of it. So it's entirely possible. I mean, we've found new cemeteries before that we are not aware of. So if that were the case, we would certainly recommend that an easement be placed around the cemetery and provisions for access to that cemetery to any family members or anyone who wanted to have access be maintained. It's just the first that we've been made aware of that.
So they actually purchased the lot and bulldozed another home to build this. So I guess they decided to split it up after they started construction on one side. And I guess my question is, why was it not rezoned before they started construction?
Well, if they would have been within their right to tear down a home and apply for permits for a new home on one lot as it's currently zoned. It was only their proposal for the second lot and second home that requires the zone change.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your good comments. Is there anyone else in the audience tonight that has a question or comment regarding this application? Hearing none, would call for a motion, Commissioners.
Make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and condition upon a general development plan docket number 2022-63 in C County, based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. The proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with any objective and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further requested this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at the public hearing.
Second. Go ahead.
Commissioner Gay?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vitale. Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Volkert, Commissioner Drain, and Chair Warren.
Yes, ma'am. The motion is approved and will go to Warren County Fiscal Court for a final approval. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. Ben, do we have any new business?
No new business, just mention our comprehensive plan update that we're going through. We just released our first video on our housing element today, and then we will have a public forum and discussion on Monday, September 19th at 5:30 p.m. Neighborhood Community Services Office, 701 East Main Avenue. We will be recording that and putting it online if you can't make that. And then October, we'll be moving on to our future land use chapter, which we expect to generate some interest, so. I'm all good.
We appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
No other new business for the commission tonight. We appreciate you all being here tonight, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.